Hi, I'm Rochelle Ireland. This is my channel, Sneaky Bunny Sewing. Today I will be reviewing a pattern by Itch to Stitch. It's the Kosice Blouse and Dress pattern. But first, here's a sneaky peek at the family of robins that built a nest in my hanging basket on my back. Here's an overview of the pattern. So you can see the blouse right here. It is a raglan style blouse with a peasant style detail over the shoulder. It's got buttons down the front. It's pretty easy fitting. Size range is quite size inclusive. It goes from a 00 all the way up to a size 20. The bust size, it goes from a 30 1/8 inch to all the way up to a 45-inch bust. For the waist size, it goes from a 25 3/8 inch all the way up to a 40.5 inch waist. For hip size, it goes from 33 1/4 inch all the way up to 48 inches. I would probably rate this pattern as a beginner to intermediate. I did find that the elastic over the shoulder was just a little bit more tricky, and some of the finishing, like French seams, buttons, buttonholes. So there are a few skills in there that would maybe make it maybe an advanced beginner. And now for some twirling footage before I get into my experience of sewing this pattern. So how did it sew? I really enjoyed sewing this pattern. I thought the instructions were very thorough. They had illustrations of every step, so it kind of held your hand every step and showed you what to do. It was clear and easy to understand. You don't need a serger because of the way this is put together. There's French seaming throughout. There's not a raw seam on the inside of either garment. Now, because I made the blouse and the dress at the same time, I did find that by the end, I was a little tired of all the French seams. It's a lot. But I'm really happy with the finished result. They are just really, really good garments. They're really comfortable. They go together pretty quick considering, all the French seams and everything. What I love most about this pattern is that it uses a very tiny bit of fabric. So for both my versions, you can see I used a remnant that I had in my stash. This is the remnant. I had it left over from a previous project and I never quite knew what to do with it. So when I saw this blouse and dress pattern, I thought, well, maybe I can get the dress. And then as I was cutting out the dress, I realized I can probably get the blouse as well. So I started cutting out the blouse and then realized I didn't quite have enough for the sleeves. So I went digging through my scraps and found some leftover sheer fabric that I had from another project that was also left over. And I swapped out the sleeves. Instead of doing this fabric, doing the sheer, which I actually really love. I left the elastic off for this version just to give it a different look, more of a sporty vibe, I guess. And then I did the full peasant style elastic sleeve on the dress. One of my main challenges is buttonholes. I think it may be user error, but my machine just randomly likes to make wonky buttonholes. It usually doesn't do it when I practice a buttonhole and I do a little sample, because I always do a sample on a little swatch of fabric and then I measure the exact size of the buttonhole before I ever start doing buttonholes down on my actual garment. But for some reason, and I don't know if it's how I'm like feeding it through the machine or what, it just randomly will make different sizes buttonholes. Just randomly malfunction and just miss parts of the buttonholes. So I go in with a zigzag after and I fix my buttonholes. And the ones that end up randomly bigger, for some strange reason, I just go in and just zigzag a bit and close up the buttonhole a little bit, and I accept a little bit of wonkiness. I don't let it stop me. I accept that as part of the charm of making your own clothes, and you know, it's a learning process, but it's also kind of cute to look back on your past projects and be able to see, hey, look at those wonky buttonholes. I've gotten better at that. Even though they're still not perfect, they're better than they were, you know? So it's a journey and it's fun to see my progress. Now for the sizing information. I'm going to talk about what I did to fit this. I actually made a straight size 6. 6 has a 35.5-inch bust, a 37/8 inch waist. It has a 38 and 5/8 inch hip. So for the blouse, this was fine. I made no changes whatsoever, just a straight size, no changes, and that worked perfectly. For the dress, I made a straight size, but I probably should have graded out to a size 8 on the hip because it ended up being kind of narrow for my hips. So if I were to do this again, I would do that, grade it out. It still fits and everything, but I do find the bottom button wants to come open. So I think what I'm going to do is just sew down that bottom placket. So I just step into the dress. It's always going to be worn as a dress anyway. That's how I'm going to wear it. So that won't be a problem for this version. And then in the future, I'll just grade out to that size 8 in the hip. But yeah, this was tremendously easy to fit. This is great if you have trouble with fitting. This is a great pattern. And I love how little fabric it used. You can get an entire dress out of a tiny amount of fabric, or a blouse if you have an even tinier amount of fabric. And if you don't quite have enough for the blouse, you could do what I did and use, you know, 2 different fabrics from your stash. So this is fantastic and I highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed seeing my makes, and I hope my insights will help you if you decide to make this pattern, with knowing what size to make and, you know, what to watch out for. I always enjoy seeing that in other people's videos. It kind of gives me a heads up before I start making something. If someone else has made it, it lets me know kind of what it looks like and what the sizing is like and what size to pick and all that. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I love to chat about sewing. I post every Friday. Happy sewing.